My name is Rory. I'm going to be speaking about managing sales, on your crew. I think for me the first thing, I look at when I'm looking to get sales going on a crew, obviously it's a fairly obvious place, which is you have to look at the individual that's leading that crew. Very often a leader can look at where the crew's going wrong and look at the averages and look at what people on the crew aren't doing. But at the end of the day, the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. So for me, the leader is the person that determines that pace, determines that piece average, and determines how good a crew does week to week. So I think that's the very first thing. And for me, a leader, the absolute thing you need to do as a leader is you need to set the pace. Setting the pace takes away excuses, shows people what's possible, and then for the kind of top performers on your crew, just allows them, to gives them that kind of, I suppose, beacon of hope to chase after and to follow results-wise and effort-wise. I think the second thing, in regards to driving, sales averages, for me, is that you have to know people's limits. I think mistakes that I made in my career starting out, some of the mistakes I made was that I expected people to have my limits and people to have my standards. And for me, that's a very frustrating crew to run because not everybody on the crew is going to want what I want. Everybody's going to have the ethic I have, and for me, most people won't have. And so if I'm trying to get everyone to the standard I hold myself to, it's a very frustrating crew to run. And what can end up happening is you end up pointing out all the problems on the crew and pointing out what people aren't doing. And again, that then will have a knock-on effect because obviously people will look at where they're going wrong, again, which will affect the speed and the piece average that people are having. Next thing I look at is more sort of an understanding of getting a sales average higher, and that's that momentum, and the fact that momentum starts at zero. Momentum starts with the leader at the front who's leading that crew of people. So for me, understanding that momentum starts at zero, understanding that momentum takes time, is important, because if you don't understand that concept in driving sales, you can get frustrated with your crew very easily. So for me, the momentum comes from me, but there's an understanding that when I get my momentum, my crew never gets it straight away. Momentum happens with the leadership at the front, and then momentum can take, if we're talking weekly momentum, can take 2-3 weeks for people to get momentum behind you. And for me, traditionally how it works is that, if I set the pace for 1 week, the average guy on my crew is going to look at it and say to themselves, well, maybe it was a lucky week. I have to do it again. And then, the average guy on the crew will say, well, maybe it was another lucky week. But by week 3, people are going, if they follow my leadership, they're saying to themselves that, well, maybe this guy doesn't know what they're doing. And it's week 3, week 4 where the crew really start gaining momentum and your top guys in your crew follow you. For me, the next way of driving sales, and again, a really important thing to be focusing on, is that you're working with the best people. You're working with the best people, you're working with the new people. And again, when I started out in my career, I made the mistake of thinking that if you work with everybody on your crew, that's how you get sales averages higher. But it's not working with the best people. It's not working with all people. It's working with the best people. It has to be that you're focusing on who are my winners. Who are the guys that have the correct character to do well at this? Who are the guys that have the hunger, that stand out from the crowd, that have the hunger, that really want to do well at this? Who are the guys that have that kind of, I suppose, competitive streak going through them? Who are the guys whose actions, speak louder than what they say? Any guy can say that they're going to, ring the gong, but who are the guys that kind of, through their actions, through their law of averages, through their timekeeping, through their effort in prime time, who are the guys that really stand out from the crowd and really want to do that? So for me, I have to put my time into those people, because there's the 80-20 rule, which obviously states that 20% of your guys will give you 80% of your kind of crew profitability. So I have to find out who those 20% of guys are, and that's where I'm focusing all my time, because that's where my crew growth is going to come from, that's where my pace is going to come from, and ultimately, my piece average. The next thing I look at is that if I want to get the piece average higher, my crew will never look at my piece average. They'll never look at our sales average any more than I look at it. So again, if I look at my sales averages only on a Monday, which can happen, if I just look at it on a Monday and then I don't review it, and we don't look at it again till the following Monday, it means that my guys in my crew are never going to look at it any more than that. So for me, again, running a crew with a big piece average comes down to, you know, paying attention to it every single day, and making sure that every day we're looking at how far people are off their weekly goals. Every single day we're recognising people that have hit their goal, that are moving toward, closer to hitting their weekly goal, and we're really recognising the actions, not the result. That I'm really honing in on what is it that this guy is doing that's getting that result, so that I'm using it as a way of educating the other guys on the crew that, again, results come from the process. And so really delving into, you know, what the guys that are performing and the guys that are, you know, raising that piece average, what they are doing out there, what decisions are they making, you know, at 7 p.m. when it's decision time and crunch time, you know, when they've got a decision to make whether they perform or, you know, whether they don't, you know, what is it these guys are doing, what is it that separates them. And I use my crew meetings as a chance to really educate the crew on the habits that will make them successful. And again, if I can influence a higher percentage of the crew by talking about these habits daily, recognising these habits daily, looking at the guys who are moving towards the goal, again, that's going to help my overall crew piece average and help me increase sales. I think the final thing for me is that, you know, making sure that there's a constant retrain culture. And again, a mistake that you can see people make is that they kind of retrain people and have a culture that they'll only retrain people when the crew is going through a slump, which is the complete wrong time to do it, because at that point, you know, you can be fear lost, you can end up working with everybody, not just the best people. You can end up, as a result of that, working with the wrong people, which then demotivates the best people. So for me, there has to be a retrain culture where, you know, every day, you know, I'm looking at who can I work with, you know, and every day, I suppose I'm nearly fear lost in myself that if I'm not developing somebody, you know, there's something wrong. There's a feeling of guilt that I have to be selling, I have to be developing, and really bringing the next people through. So for me, it's important that every day and every week I'm thinking about who do I need to work with, you know, who are my projects, who am I trying to bring through. And again, it comes from me, but if I've got that type of culture that I'm trying to, you know, instill in my crew, then the best guys in my crew do the same with their guys on their crew, and it becomes a you know, great culture of retraining within the crew. I think, again, in summary, bringing all the points together, I think when I see crews that don't have momentum and crews that don't have a good piece average, you know, the leader is the first place I look, the guy at the front. And for me, it's very easy for a leader to point the finger, and it's human nature first to point the finger and make an excuse and blame the crew. But at the end of the day, you know, you're self-employed. You know, the buck stops with you. The crew, if the crew averages are wrong, you know, it comes from what you're coaching. And you know, a very real scenario that I learned very early on was that your crew are a reflection of you. And so if the crew average is wrong, you know, I have to be part of the solution and not just look at the problem. You know, I have to recruit in new people. And a common objective that I've always got is recruit in new people with an objective to make them better than the existing people that I've got. So for me, you know, the absolute main way of building that crew momentum, building the crew sales, is making sure that I'm doing what I require people to do. And I suppose a real example for me is that if you were to make a list of the ideal crew that you'd like to have, you know, I think everybody would make a list of somebody that's, you know, confident, somebody that's has high sales average, somebody that hits their goal. And again, you know, when you look at that list, it comes down to the leader at the front, you know, more than anything. That guy has to be the example that they're trying to attract. So, you know, to get that crew and get that momentum, again, it comes from the leader. You know, it doesn't happen the day I decide to create the momentum as the leader of the crew. You know, I have to be hitting that momentum, hitting those averages, you know, hitting those sales targets, you know, week in, week out, to get my crew culture to do the same. And, you know, to get that culture there, it doesn't come overnight. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. A culture is formed over time, and a culture is formed by the example that leader gives. That's, I suppose, my main points on the topic. But again, you know, leadership, it's all about leadership and all about, you know, leading, you know, from the front and being the person that you're trying to attract.